Hey there friends, welcome back to Mama Birds. My name is Robin if you're new, and today we are going to process some salmon. It is salmon season around these parts and fishing is pretty good right now. So I've got 4 sockeye salmon in my fridge that need to have something done with them. We're probably gonna have some for dinner and I'm gonna put the rest of it in the freezer, but I'm gonna show you how I fillet it. I just wanted to say though that I am not a professional. I am not a professional fish harvester by any means whatsoever. It is a skill, a very, very intricate skill that is learnt by doing. And that's, you can watch as many videos as you want and, instructions and actually face-to-face watching people do it yourself. And until you actually get hands-on time filleting fish, it's another game. So I've been doing fish every year, typically at the end of the summer, for about 3 or 4 years now. So I have probably done about 50 salmon, give or take. And I still feel like I'm not very good at this, but I'm going to share what I do anyway. Typically what we will end up doing is in the winter time when it's a bit slower and I'm going through my freezer and doing, a bit of a clean out or whatever you want to call it. That's when I'm going to can my salmon. I don't typically can salmon right away because you have to brine it and it has to sit. You can smoke it and then can it. I don't particularly like salmon raw packed just as it is and then canned. It's just not my preference. So what I do is I freeze it, and then when I'm ready to can it, I'll pull it out of the freezer, defrost it, brine it, and then put it in the jars. But you can definitely smoke it. You can definitely can it raw pack just exactly how it is. There's so many different ways to do it, so I'm just going to share with you what I'm doing this year. Full transparency here, you guys. This is my 3rd fish that I'm doing in this clip right here. You can see I've already done a couple, but this is a sockeye. It's super beautiful. We haven't been able to catch sockeye in our area, or really fish salmon in our area, for a few years now. So it's really nice to see that the numbers of sockeye are up in our area. So we are able to do this and with minimal travel. So here's the 2 beautiful sockeye that I have left to do on this day. I did do 4. And in our area, we have a 2 fish per day limit. And then you can travel with a maximum of twice your daily limit. So if we were to go out of town to fish sockeye and needed to travel home, like if we did like an overnight fishing trip and we're coming home, we could actually go and fish and bring home 4 each. What I'm doing in this exact moment is a trick that I learned from somebody who was teaching me how to do salmon filleting for the very first time. And I haven't actually used this trick in a while, but I'm so out of practice, so I figured I would go for it. And what I do is I put the knife in from the belly side and I push it in just on top of where the spine is, into all the way through the fish, and then fillet from that point to the tail. And what that does is when I flipped it back over, it gives me a target to hit from when I'm going from the top of the fish to the bottom. And I find that it's really, really helpful to do that step, especially for the first fillet when you're out of practice. So this is a super great trick that I learned from a friend when I was doing sockeye for the first time, and it's really helpful. Now for the second side, you don't actually need it because you kind of already can feel where the spine is at this point, and you just run your knife all the way down, all the way through the ribs and off the tail, and then it comes off just like that. So that's a trick for you if you are new to filleting fish, especially larger fish like salmon. It's a really great way to help yourself in not wasting as much as you can of the meat, of the good meat that we want to keep. So I'm just cleaning up the inside of the fish a little bit here. There's always some sort of something in there. And then we're going to remove the ribs. And this is the part that I was super nervous about showing you, because some people make it look so easy and it's really an art. If you could see, I've zoomed in for you here, but you can almost see my knife through the inside, and that is what you want. You want to try and get your knife almost at an upward angle and as close to those rib bones as you can get, because those rib bones are actually coming off. So I've obviously missed a couple pieces, and that's totally fine because I can always go back in and remove them. I want to try and keep as much of this fish as possible. So next we're going to remove that, I think it's a pectoral fin. It's the bottom fin on the bottom of the fish where the belly is. It's kind of like their arms or what have you, and then the dorsal fin at the top there. If you fillet this exactly perfectly wonderfully for the first time when you're removing these from the fish side, those won't be there, but here we are, we're doing our best. So I just go along and I use my finger and I feel where those pin bones are, and I cut it just in half. I try and keep the skin intact because when I fold it, I put it in the vacuum seal bag just like this. And so there's one full side of salmon, and that's what we'll have for dinner if we're cooking fish for dinner. So I also find it super convenient to leave the skin on when I'm vacuum sealing fish and freezing fish, because sometimes I take the fish from the freezer and then we do the canning and the smoking and the brining and all of the things, and I find it super convenient to have the skin intact on the fish when we're doing those steps, because sometimes the fish can get out of hand, and I just find it convenient. I do sometimes remove the skin if I'm gifting a friend fillets, or, chunks of salmon. I will remove the pin bones and I will remove the skin for them, and it was just beautiful and convenient for a friend. But right now I'm just getting this done and into the freezer. So there's another look at the beautiful fillets that we're getting off this fish. So here again, start to finish, we're gonna get in there above the collar. I guess it's behind the collar of the fish. We're just going to go in on an angle. You can see it's kind of at a 45 degree. We're going to use our knife, go just in above the spine. So your knife will be on top of the spine all the way through the body of the fish, out the other side, and then cutting towards the tail. And at this point, we are going back up to the top, and then we're going to use that cut line from that we just did as a target to hit that target and get that fillet off. The more that I do, the more I feel confident. So at this point in time, I was getting, I was finding my rhythm, but we were almost finished. So I stopped worrying about the camera. I stopped worrying about what, it looked like. I was trying to get, you some good shots or good angles. But I mean, once I got started, I just kind of had to zone it out because, like I've said, it is an art to be able to fillet fish. And I just needed to focus on what I was doing and my angles of my knife and the way that I'm holding the fish and the way that I'm processing this animal. I want to get the most out of it as I can. So it became much more smooth for me once I got to this point, and I think it kind of shows that, there wasn't as much waste on the carcass, and I was really, getting comfortable with the knife, and it was just going really well. So one of the other things I would suggest if you have the time is you can absolutely scrape down the carcasses. We've absolutely done that before in the past, and I absolutely plan to do that this year as well with some of the other fish. And what you can do is just use a spoon. You can use a teaspoon or like a sugar spoon, or, any kind of spoon. I've seen people use ice cream scoops before, but you just use the spoon and you scrape down the edges of the spine, and you can pull off even more meat. So what we typically do is we scrape down all of our fish while we're doing the processing, and we put all of that scraped off meat into a package, and we use that to make salmon burgers. It's super convenient way because it's basically already ground itself when you are scraping it off the fish, and you're getting even more out of the fish for yourself. The other thing that we've done before is made seafood stock with the carcasses. I don't use the heads or the skin or any of the tail or fins or anything like that for the stock, because I just find it becomes very like soapy and like it just gives it a funky flavor. And so I don't prefer that, but I definitely have used the spine and all of the rib bones in a seafood stock before, and it was fantastic. I have enough right now, so we end up discarding the rest of the carcasses from these fish, but we absolutely, do our best to try and use as much as we can and salvage as much as we can, because it's such a gift to be able to have this beautiful salmon in our freezers. So the couple pieces of what we call the belly meat are just sitting there on the cardboard. Those I am going to keep, but what I'm going to do with those is probably make them into animal treats. We have some cats that are very bougie, so they will definitely get their fill in salmon. These were just pieces that I needed to cut off of the fish when I was processing the first two, and I just couldn't salvage them, but I couldn't bring myself to throw them out. So we are definitely going to keep them, and they are the bellies, so our cats will end up loving those. I didn't really talk much about my setup here, and I'm just using a collapsible table and an old cardboard box. It just so happens that this box is actually food grade, but you can absolutely use a cereal box or any sort of cardboard that you like. I just find it the most simple to dispose of once I'm finished, and I don't like to use my good cutting boards to do this because it is a messy project. And the most important piece of equipment is a very sharp knife. If you think you have a sharp one, sharpen it even more, because it is such a crucial piece of equipment when it comes to filleting fish. Once I was finished doing all of that filleting, my family needed me, and I wasn't able to get to this part of the process right away. So what I did was I just closed those containers. You can see the one on the stove there, and then I have another one in the fridge, and I'm just creating all of the bags first. So I go through and I figure out how many bags I need. So for each fish we did, I need 2 bags. We had 4 fish, which means I need 8 bags to fit these fillets. And so I make all of my bags right at the beginning, cut them to size. Most of the fish are the same, so I don't have to worry about there being, too small or too big or whatever. I just make them all the same, and then I stuff them and vacuum seal them one at a time. So I just put the fillet in, put the bag into the vacuum sealer, and then lock it up and vacuum seal it. Each piece of equipment when it comes to these things is different, and so I would just use the instructions for your vacuum sealer. You can get something like this at Walmart. You could go to Cabela's or Bass Pro. There's places all over the place where you can get these vacuum sealers, and they range in price. I would suggest getting something, middle of the road if you're new at this. If you're wanting to do some massive preserving, then maybe get something that can handle that. So once the bags come off of the machine and they are, quote unquote sealed, I always try and make sure that I have a look and a listen, because you will be able to hear the air, going back into the bag. If it hasn't sealed right, or if there's a puncture mark, you will be able to hear it. And it's almost like a whistle. So I definitely inspect the bag visually, and I also look at it or listen for any sort of air movement that's happening. And I do this more than once. So when I take it off the machine, I do it. And then before I put it in the freezer, I also make sure that I'm having a look and listen at each individual bag. On this day, there was one bag that didn't seal properly. So we ended up eating it. I just popped it back in the fridge, and we ended up eating it the next day for dinner. So if you, just like when you're canning, if you don't have a bag that seals properly and you don't want to re-seal it, just throw it in the fridge and eat it right away. So at this point, we are halfway. Here's the second tray that I have of salmon, and this is the very last piece that you're seeing. and again, inspecting every single bag that I've done again, just to make sure that everything is sealed and properly vacuumed out all of the air, etc. I am going to gift some of the salmon to a couple of mama friends who have littles and husbands. So I want to make sure that they are done properly at the very least, and that my friends are getting the best quality that I can give them. Okay, friends, for those of you who have joined me in my basement before, it is an absolute mess down here right now, and I cannot get to my beef freezer. My beef freezer. And the reason is because we are getting a new furnace and we had to relocate a bunch of things. So I have to put the salmon in my other freezer, which has a bunch of fruit, some sausage, it's got a couple of bread products, and some pot stickers. And there's just some random things in here that I kind of grabbed as they were on sale that we do go through regularly, but this is not the freezer that I want to put the salmon in, but that's my only choice right now. So I'm just shimmied some things around because I want to try and freeze this as flat as possible so that when I go to get something out of the freezer, it for the most part looks like this. If I fold it and like get it all congealed and stuff, there's more risk for puncture on the bag, and it just doesn't just frost as evenly and as nicely. So that's why I want to try and freeze everything as flat as possible. Now, like I said earlier in the beginning of this video, my intention is to eventually can some of the salmon. I'm not going to do that in this video, but I am definitely going to do it in a video because I know that there's going to be more salmon to come in my life in the near future here. So it's definitely an art filleting fish, and I have not mastered that yet, but I'm working on it and I'm trying and I'm doing the best that I can. So that's good for me. Hopefully learn something from the filleting of salmon. They were beautiful sockeye, and I'm sure there'll be more coming in my front door in the next 24 to 48 hours. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around. Consider subscribing if you're new, and we'll catch you in the next one.